Welcome to CrimePod Castle's Twisted Love series. Today we're diving into a case that really shook India back in 2015. It's the Nashik Honor Killing. This one is heavy, but it's important to talk about. So imagine falling in love, dreaming of a future together,
Yeah.
only to have those dreams just completely shattered because your love challenges what society says is acceptable. And that's exactly what happened to Priya Patil and Sameer Shaikh in Nashik. Priya was a 22-year-old college student, and she fell in love with Sameer. He was a 24-year-old mechanic. But their love story unfolded in a place where crossing community lines could literally be a death sentence.
Yeah, it's a sad reminder that even in the 21st century, tradition can have some pretty brutal consequences.
Priya's family, especially her father Vikram and her brother Rahul, they were just furious about the relationship. They saw Sameer as a threat to their family's honor. They issued threats, tried to control Priya's every move. It was like they were trying to suffocate her.
That's a very common pattern in these honor-based violence cases. It's all about control and punishment, trying to enforce those societal norms. And sadly, it's often the women who end up paying the price.
Priya and Sameer, desperate and in love, they made a daring decision. They decided to elope, run away to Mumbai, build a life together. They thought they could outrun it all.
They probably felt like it was their only choice. A desperate gamble to try and find some happiness.
Before fleeing to Mumbai, though, they went back to Nashik just for a little bit to grab some belongings, get ready for the move. And that decision sealed their fate. March 10th, 2015, on the outskirts of Nashik, all their hopes were just crushed.
It wasn't a chance encounter. Priya's father and brother were waiting for them. That's the really chilling part, the level of planning. This wasn't something that just happened in the heat of the moment. It was an execution.
Armed with weapons, they ambushed the couple. Driven by this twisted sense of honor that just demanded a blood sacrifice,
It's hard to even grasp that rage, that sense of entitlement that could drive someone to do that to their own family. To kill in the name of honor.
Sameer was killed immediately. Priya, trying to protect him, she was fatally wounded too. Their dreams, their future, everything was gone in a second. It's just unbearable to even picture it.
It's heartbreaking, the terror, the helplessness they must have felt. And for what? Because they dared to love.
Witnesses heard the screams, saw the brothers running away. The police, they responded quickly. It wasn't a mystery, no question of who did it. The evidence against Vikram and Rahul was overwhelming.
Eyewitnesses, forensics, the murder weapons themselves, it all pointed right at them. And then they confessed. Cold, chilling admissions of guilt, driven by that same twisted idea of honor. They wanted to wipe their family clean, using blood.
It became a national story, this horrific event that forced India to confront this very dark side of itself, honor killings. It wasn't just a crime, it was a wound, a deep wound in their society. And Priya and Sameer's story became a symbol of that.
It resonated with everyone, the brutality of it, the fact that it was their own family.
Within 48 hours, Vikram and Rahul were arrested. The trial started later that year, and everyone was watching Nashik, waiting to see if justice would actually be served.
This case became so much bigger than just two people. It was about a society struggling with tradition and freedom.
The prosecution, they built a really strong case. They presented the murders as premeditated. Driven by this poisonous pride, there was no room for doubt.
They had mountains of evidence, eyewitness testimony, forensics, even Vikram and Rahul's own detailed confessions.
The defense tried to paint a different picture, claimed that Vikram and Rahul were victims themselves of societal pressure, that they acted in the heat of the moment, blinded by tradition.
It felt like a desperate attempt to soften what they did, trying to shift the blame, even a little, away from them and onto society.
The court didn't buy it, though. The evidence was just too strong. In mid-2016, the verdict came. Both Vikram and Rahul Patil, guilty of double murder, sentenced to death.
It was a landmark decision, a huge message that India wasn't going to tolerate this anymore.
It wasn't just about punishing them. It was about sending a message that love, not hate, should be at the heart of any society.
A message that definitely needed to be sent, but the question is, was it enough?
Yeah, that's the question that sticks with you, isn't it? Did this verdict actually change anything?
That's what we're going to look at in the next part of this deep dive. We'll look at what happened after the case, the reforms that came about, and if they've actually made a difference. The Nashik case really brought this whole issue of honor killings to light in India. It ripped the Band-Aid off a wound that had been festering for so long. It forced people to see these killings not as just some abstract problem, but as a truly brutal crime with real victims and real consequences.
Yeah, it must have been a real turning point, like a wake-up call for the entire nation.
Exactly. The media was all over it. It brought the issue right into people's living rooms. And the public outcry was huge. People wanted justice. They wanted to see things change.
So what kind of change did we see after this case? Were there any actual reforms put in place?
Yes, definitely. This case really became the catalyst for some much-needed legal reform. Activists and organizations have been fighting for specific laws against honor killings for years. But the Nashik case gave their movement a tragic but very powerful boost.
What specific legal changes are we talking about here?
Well, before Nashik, honor killings were often treated like regular murders. Perpetrators got away with lighter sentences. But this case, with all the attention it got and the clear evidence of premeditation, it really pushed for a stricter interpretation of the law.
So the law actually changed as a result.
Yes, there was a big push for harsher punishment specifically for honor killings. The courts started to recognize that these crimes are different. The planning, the family pressure, the whole twisted motive behind them. And so they started handing down tougher sentences.
That's a positive step for sure. But harsher punishments don't necessarily stop these crimes from happening in the first place, right? It seems like we also need to be protecting potential victims before it's too late.
Absolutely. You're absolutely right. Punishment after the fact is important, but it's not enough. The Nashik case showed that we need to do more to protect people who are at risk, especially those who are brave enough to challenge societal norms.
So what was done to address that side of things?
Well, there was a big push to create support systems, specifically for people in intercaste or interfaith relationships, people facing threats from their own families.
What kind of support systems are we talking about?
Things like shelters and safe houses, places where people could go to escape threats of violence. Helplines and counseling services were also set up to offer guidance and support to those who needed it.
So it sounds like there was a real effort to tackle this problem from multiple angles. Legal reforms, tougher punishments, support for potential victims. Have all these measures actually made a difference? Have we seen a decrease in honor killings since the Nashik case?
It's hard to say for sure. These crimes are often hidden, shrouded in secrecy and shame, so it's difficult to get accurate numbers. But there's definitely been a shift.
A shift in what way?
Awareness. The Nashik case made people in India really aware of this problem. It forced them to confront the fact that this was happening in their communities. And with that awareness comes more scrutiny, more pressure to do something about it.
Yeah, you would hope that would have some impact. If people are more aware, if there's more media attention, maybe families would be less likely to resort to this kind of extreme violence.
It's hard to measure for sure, but I do think the increased attention has made a difference. There's more pressure on law enforcement now to take these cases seriously, to investigate them properly, and to make sure the perpetrators are brought to justice.
It's good to hear. But at the same time, we can't forget about the deep-rooted cultural beliefs that fuel these crimes. Changing those beliefs is going to be a long and difficult process.
You're absolutely right. Laws and law enforcement are crucial parts of the solution, but they're only part of it. We need a deeper change in society itself. We need to challenge the very idea of honor that's used to justify violence and control over others.
I mean, how do we even begin to do that? These beliefs are so ingrained in the culture.
I think education is key. We need to empower young people to think critically, to question these rigid social norms, to understand that individual freedom and choice are important values.
It sounds like a long road ahead.
It is, but it's a road we have to travel. We can't let traditions that condone violence and control dictate people's lives. Priya and Sameer's story is a tragic reminder of what's at stake. It's a reminder of the human cost of these harmful beliefs.
Their love story, cut so tragically short, it became a symbol of the fight against these harmful traditions. A reminder that love should never be punished, and that everyone should have the freedom to choose who they love.
And it's a call to action for all of us. We can't be complacent. We have to speak out against injustice, challenge prejudice wherever we see it, and work towards a society where love, not violence, wins out.
This has been such a powerful conversation. It's a reminder that love, something so beautiful, can be met with such horrific violence.
It's difficult to comprehend, but it's important to remember that these cases, while terrible, are not the norm. There are many stories of love overcoming adversity, of families accepting their children's choices.
It's important to hold on to that hope, to believe that change is possible.
Absolutely. We can't let the darkness win. We have to believe that a world where love is celebrated, not punished, is possible.
But this case does force us to confront the dark side of humanity, the side that clings to outdated traditions and uses violence to control others.
It does, but it also highlights the resilience of the human spirit, the courage to love even in the face of adversity, and the determination to fight for a better future.
Priya and Sameer's story is a testament to the power of love and the ongoing fight for justice. It's a story that deserves to be told, a story that should inspire us all to challenge harmful norms and to work towards a world where everyone can love freely, without fear.
Their legacy lives on in the fight for a more just and compassionate world. A world where love truly conquers all.
Cases like Priya and Sameer's, they really make you think. Like, love can be dangerous in some parts of the world. It makes you wonder, how do we actually change things? How do we change mindsets that are so stuck in these old traditions?
That's the big challenge, isn't it? Laws aren't enough. We need a real cultural shift. We need to start valuing things like individual choice and freedom instead of these outdated ideas about family honor.
Right, but how? Where do you even start with something like that?
Well, I think it starts with education and open conversations. We need to be honest about the pressures young people are facing, the weight of expectations, the fear of disappointing their families.
So we need to create spaces where they can talk about these things, openly and without feeling judged.
Exactly. Give them the tools to question these traditions. Help them understand that love shouldn't be something to be afraid of.
And we need to support those who are brave enough to actually challenge the status quo.
Absolutely. Those who choose love over tradition, they often face so much backlash, isolation, rejection, even threats. We need to be there for them, show them they're not alone.
Like a safety net, a whole network of support for those who are vulnerable.
Yeah, exactly. And that includes supporting organizations that are working to combat this kind of violence. They're the ones providing shelter, legal help, counseling. They offer a sense of community for those who need it most.
This deep dive has been really thought-provoking. Priya and Sameer's story is just such a powerful reminder of what's at stake here. I don't think I'll forget it.
It's a story that should stay with all of us. It's a call to action. We can't let their deaths be in vain. We have to keep fighting for a world where love wins out.
It reminds us that love should never be a reason to be afraid. Everyone deserves to choose who they love without fear of violence.
We owe it to Priya and Sameer, and to all the others who have suffered because of this, to keep pushing for change.
This has been an incredibly powerful deep dive. We got right into the heart of a tragedy that shook a nation, and it forced people to confront some really dark things. It's tough to talk about, but it's so important that we do.
And remember, change starts with each one of us. Let's all commit to building a world where love wins.
Don't forget to follow and subscribe to CrimePod Castle and our YouTube channel for more stories and discussions. Stay safe, stay curious, and stay vigilant.